will be a real pain for people who see it there. Yeah, it's back on.
Yeah, okay. So basically in C++, you have this header file called iostream, which contains all the basic functions for input and output. And every time, and they're included in a standard class, because standard C++ deals with standard input and standard output. So whenever you're using a function from iostream, you have to write std and then these two colons, which denote that cn is like an object of this class. So if you people know what classes and objects are, it's fine. Else also it's fine. You don't need to go very deep into this. So you write standard CNN. So you're taking the input from the user using this function, and you can output using cout as well. So now writing these lines repeatedly can become kind of pain. So if you're using only one kind of standard, like a standard input output, say you're using only iostream library throughout your code, you can avoid writing this by just including this line using namespace standard, and then you can directly use cnn and coutn. Should run as well. See, runs. Any doubts so far?
Right. I think we can just go on to maybe just showing initially how the ROS thing is imported, and then we can show some object-oriented programming.
Yeah, cool.
Guys, any questions or anything with regard to this? I mean, you would have gone through this in your course, but if you have any questions, just shoot right now.
So what's that bracket one plus done for at the end? Like, is that
Oh,
part of?
that's just a compiler message, bro. Like it depends on which compiler you're using. I'm using this compiler called G++14. So that usually gives the message. One means success. Like in C++, one means success. Zero means like one means true. Zero means
Yeah, yeah,
false.
yeah, yeah. Got
So
you.
one means success, and then plus done means like it's done compiling and done giving output. That's it.
Yeah. So actually, the way
Yeah,
your compiler makes a build, runs a C++ file, is it creates a sort of build or exe sort of thing out of your file. So this is basically certifying that that thing has been created
Huh.
with no errors. So if you use MinGW in your Windows system, you can actually see this in action. So when you try to run a CPP file, it will make a build file right next to that, which is basically like an exe file, like
yeah, yeah.
a desktop
I understood.
application that will run your code.
Yeah. Also, if you want to put a new line for this, you can do endl. So yeah, Akshat, before we show the ROS thing, I'll just cover loops a little bit.
Ha ha.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So I guess you must have learned about loops as well. So yeah, supposing okay, I'll just ask this as a question. Supposing I want to fill an array. Supposing I'm given an integer n and from the user, and I want to fill an array with the first 10 natural numbers. Uh, can someone tell me how will we do that?
The first n natural numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone can just unmute and say, or even type it out in chat. It's fine. It's better if you unmute though.
Aniket wrote for loop.
Sorry.
Aniket wrote in the chats, is it a for loop?
It is a for loop. Like even like just tell a pseudocode or something. No, how you will fill it.
Yeah, just unmute, make it a little less boring for us.
Yeah.
Okay, we have two people who've written the code.
Okay. Wait. I'll just see. One second. On chat, no.
Uh,
That is equal to 0. I less than n I plus plus. Yeah. AI is equal to I plus n. Yeah. Perfect. I mean, you first initialize an array. Say okay. A um, size n. Then like this, or individual I less than n I plus plus. Okay, it won't be AI is equal to I plus 1. Like how you can do this way also. Like this is using the C array. Yeah, this does it. Fine.
Or like there is another way of doing this, which is using a vector.
One second. I'll just show this output and then we'll do that.
Actually, the reason we are also a little rusty with this is that you don't use these C type of data structures anymore later on, so it's a little walk down the memory lane for us.
Yeah, so as you can see, code was perfect, ran perfectly. Now there is one more way of doing this. The way you guys did it was you made an array. Now this array which you have made is a C type array. Nowadays, like C++, there is a thing called vector. Akshat, should we introduce that to them?
Yeah, I think it's fair.
Okay, cool. So
So basically,
vec-
the Python guys among you would not like the look of something like this, what we have just done. So, okay, we'll get to your question in just a minute. So, the Python guys will not like what you've just done, that you have created an array of size n. The Python guy will say, what if we want to later on increase the array, later on do something with the array, later on add a non-integer value. So, basically, in C++, there's something called a standard template library, STL, in which it is not exactly as versatile as what Python, a simple Python list can let you do, but it is your size can increase. Like you can do the Python guys would do an append, so you can do something like that here. And obviously, you can build on other data structures that can do whatever you want. Yeah, Ayush, carry on.
yeah, okay.
Okay, we have one question also.
Uh-huh.
So, what is that? What is the use of using namespace std?
So okay, if you don't use namespace std,
So basically, the error that we showed earlier, right? That it wasn't recognizing cn and co. That is what will happen actually.
see,
So now you need to do std colon colon cn. So basically, to avoid writing this, because a lot of the commands we use are going to be in std, we just do it like this.
because writing std colon colon every time is pain, right? So we just do using namespace standard and then. But there is one thing. So supposing if you are using some other library along with iostream, say okay, don't ponder much upon this, but supposing you're using OpenCV also, for instance, with C++, then you cannot use two namespaces together. So like one will be std colon colon, and then the other one will be like depending on the name of the library, it will be something, say like cv colon colon or something. In that case, you'll have to write it properly. But since we are using only one object class, we can replace this with using namespace. Is that clear? Like, did that clear your doubt?
Yeah, he wrote okay.
Okay, cool. Yes, so there is this STL like template called vector. It's pretty useful. I mean, if you experiment a bit with programming more, you'll get to know it. Basically, we initialize this as vector and then the type you want to store in it and then the name. So vector within angular brackets, int and then v. Okay, wait one second. Okay, some weird stuff is happening, no, Akshat?
Yeah, actually, I don't think you had to enter a space after vector.
No, that doesn't matter. Like, uh,
I think it
oh,
might.
right, okay,
Yeah,
fine. It's not in iostream, no?
yeah, you
It's
need
in
to add a bit cpp.
bits. Okay. So basically, iostream only includes basic functions which you use in C as well as in C++. To include all everything which is available in C++, there is this library called bits std c++.h. Just don't worry about what that is right now. For namesake, I'll just do. This is that library. This contains almost everything. Like it has algorithms, it has c math, it has the vector stl, it has simple making simple arrays, it has printf, everything it has. So once you include this library, it basically covers all the functions which you can use in C++. right? So now we can, I think yes, now we can initialize an array. Sorry, vector v. So
So
vector
the
is,
beauty of a vector is you don't have to specify the size right there. The size is basically up to you.
yes, it's a dynamic. Um, it's a dynamically allotted, like allotted memory space. Like if you can keep adding elements on it, and it will keep increasing its size, like up to, of course, the allowed space which your program can run in. So in this, you can do it like this also. So there are two ways to do this. You can either initialize a huge size and then put all the elements to zero and then initialize everyone with the element, something like this. Say you have 1,000 elements and each of them are zero. So this is basically create a vector v, like with 1,000 boxes, and each of them will be filled with zero. And then you can just specify vi is equal to I plus 1. Cout vi, and then I'll just put a cout under here. So 7, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
But here we are running into the same thing basically that we ran into earlier. We now have sort of a size, so we want to get rid of that. So yeah,
So now,
you should.
so now what we can do, if you now you can see there are, we initialize the space for 1,000 elements, but we are only filling seven elements, so 993 elements are getting wasted. So worry not, vector provides this amazing function called pushback. So basically what it does is that I'll just open a Google Jamboard. Yeah, basically what it does, so supposing when you initialize a vector v, say it's of some random size, as these boxes. So when you do v dot pushback, I'll just write pp for instance 5. It will put 5 to the first element here. Then if you run pushback again, say v dot pp 7, it will put 7 here, and then so on. Then 8 for instance, or 9, like that. So basically it just keeps it's sort of like append in Python if you've used Python before. So this makes things very easy for us, and yeah, this should run as well. Wait, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Any doubts in this?
Yeah, by the way, just a random question. How many of you do have done Python earlier? Okay, what is the advantage? We'll go over that. Okay, Abhigyan, Hans, and
Sorry, what is the question?
how many of you have done Python earlier? Okay, so fair bunch of people. So one thing you would notice right now is that we are still limited in terms of what we were able to do with append. So append had something called an arbitrary data type, which means we don't have to push back an int. We can push back an array of integers. We can push back a string. We can push back anything. So that is a little different from here, and we can actually make a C++ data type that will be able to do that, but we won't go over that here. Okay, we have a question. What is
Mm-hmm.
the advantage of using a vector? So the
What is
advantage is the same, that you don't have to specify that size in earlier. So your code, let's say if you were just using arrays, right? So if you're just using arrays, then making 10,000. So let's say you make a code that is general for every question. And so for 10,000 values, you'll use basically the same space as you'll use for 5 values. So this is basically a way to avoid that.
And like pushback is just one of the functions which are
Yeah.
included inside vector. There are many, like if you go to c++.net or somewhere, you'll see a lot of useful functions. I mean, see, you will if you practice programming a little bit more, you'll get to understand why. vector is much more useful than a normal array. But since our scope is not for programming or competitive programming as such, like just take it from us that vector is actually much better than an array in most cases. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah, we can move on, I guess.
huh, this much C++ should be enough.
This much CPS is
This much is it.
definitely
I
more than
mean,
enough.
you
I
can
think we
obviously.
went a little overboard also.
Yeah, yeah. Just that this vector thing is kind of extra. You might not need it also, but yeah, for basic C++, you should like know how to like take user input, how to take user output, how to write for loops, and then how to work with strings. I think strings is also something important, right, Akshat? Which
Not sure. I don't think it is important in the current context.
okay, fine, fine.
Like overall, it would be, but right now, I think we should keep it simple.
Huh. Just for like completion, you know how to take string directly as input, right? Like if anyone can tell me, that would be nice.
Because what you do in your CS courses, make a char and then uh, make basically an array of single characters. So you guys know how to. Do you guys know how to take a string like directly in?
I don't think we took it all in at once. We took single characters.
Yeah. So
Then
basically, the you can take it all in at once. So basically, our CS 700 pros are really averse to using STL. They want you guys to look at everything from the very basic building blocks. But yeah, you can do a lot of things that you weren't able to do there. So
so
basically, the STL container is just called string. That's it. You just
I'll
write a
just
string.
show that. I'll
Yeah,
just
yeah,
show
you can show that.
just in case. I mean, just for completion purposes. So nothing. You just write. Okay, the way how you declare an integer is int h, right? For instance, or how you declare a float is float f. Similarly, you can declare a string str, for instance, and just do cn str.
Yeah. So this string str will only work if you have used the namespace std because it is a standard template library.
Yeah.
And if you want to delve a little deeper, then there is a specific library called string.h. I think
Okay.
you
Okay.
might have used that in
They
CS
must
level.
have used in. So just for so if I type my name, yeah, and you can even access it like a character array. So like I think someone was saying no, they've taken input as a character array and then
Exactly.
so yeah, see first letter of my name. So basically, it simplifies a lot of things. That's what we're
Yeah.
trying. Yeah, I guess this is about C++. Akshat, I think you can
Yeah.
take like
I'll
6
take
minutes.
over. I think.
Anything if you want to ask anything also, like even if it was not covered in the session, please feel free to ask. It's fine. I mean, later on after the session ends.
Yeah. So the one very good thing about Python is that you can do everything from your terminal very directly. So in Python there is something called interactive mode. So if you just enter Python, that's it. You can just experiment with a lot of Python right here. So a very good thing about Python is you don't have to include anything. You don't have to make a main function. You don't have to do anything. Okay. This might seem strange. I'll make it properly on VS Code. Okay, this will open my old directory. Never mind this. So basically, by the way, this is a very useful command. If you enter code dot on any directory, it will open VS Code in that directory. So a very good thing about Python with Visual Studio is that it is very easy to make. Like you don't have to, and it is actually quicker to process because we don't make a build file for it. I mean, overall, like if you have a build file ready, then C++ is orders of magnitude easier to process. But because Python does not require all of that, then you will see that in your system Python will seem to be faster, at least for small programs. Right. So the way we included stuff, that is basically import here, but we won't be using a lot of import here because most of the things we'll be discussing right now will already be there. So I'll tell you a few very good libraries. There is one called NumPy. So basically, this gives you a lot of. This is basically like a linear algebra library. So matrices, anything. The really good mathematic calculations on matrices, on arrays, on everything you can do in NumPy. Then there is a, a thing called pandas. So you'll hear these two together many times. A lot of scam courses sell these two libraries ka course. So pandas is just a way to integrate what you do here into data frames. Data frame is just basically your Excel file. So if you get a lot of things in Excel, then you can just use pandas to sort of you know, work on that. Then there is okay. This is also something very interesting that you can see these things coming up. So this is basically something called GitHub Copilot. So you guys can try this out. It helps you along while you code. Uh, right. And so right now we'll just do some basic operations. So instead of cin, we use input. And the way that works is that you don't have to declare any variables here. So this would seem very foreign to those of you who have done C++, that you don't have to declare anything. You just randomly start with something. And then A is equal to, so standard input it takes in a string format. So I have to do an int, like an explicit type conversion, if you know what that is. If you don't, it's just taking it as as a string and then converting it into something else. So A is equal to looks fine. And then C out is basically just print. So as you can see, what was like a 5-6 line code over there is hardly 2 lines here. Okay, my system is hanging a bit. Okay, yeah, sorry for so okay, this is test.py. And what we can do is, so if you want to run a Python code, you just enter here python test.py. So A is equal to 100. It will give us 100. So basically that is it. So uh, going forward, let me show you something very interesting you can do in Python that you cannot do in CPP. So let's say we want to take three inputs, A, B, and V. So we can just do this. A becomes this, B becomes this, V becomes this. So we can do like this sort of multiple initialization of values right here. And you can also print them very directly. So Python is basically very fancy English. So you just tell your program what to do and it will do it basically. We run this again. So you can see that this appears astronomically fast as compared to what Aayush was doing. So 10, 10, 100, and we got that. Okay, so the second thing we did was to make a loop. So a loop is fairly similar to what it was over there. So a for loop. So the way a for loop works here is that it will initialize I, and what? Okay, I'll just make something and then I'll tell you what it does. Okay, so the way a for loop works here is that this is our iterator basically, the thing that is changing. So you don't have to define it earlier or anything. It will come by itself. It will reinitialize itself. It will do everything. The way a for loop works is that you have to do for I in or some condition, and what range 100 is basically just I'll just show you. So we'll print range 100. And another beautiful thing about Python is that you can print anything, no matter what it is, it will be printed. So even if it is like In CPP, you cannot just print one whole vector or one whole list at once. Here you can. It's a random thing like this. So yeah, range 100 gave me all the numbers from 0 till 9. Okay, so this was this. And yeah, so you basically see that it has all the numbers from 0 all the way up to 99. So the way this works is, let's say I want to start the numbers from 10. So I'll just do 10 to 100 here, and I will see what that does. I should just turn this off at this point. Yeah. So here it started the numbers from 10 and went up till 99. So basically it goes till this number minus 1, and it starts from this number. And let's say if I just want even numbers, so I'll do a comma 2, and now it will just give me even numbers. Yeah. So there's just even numbers 10, 12, 14, 16. So yeah, so this is the equivalent of doing a plus is equal to 2 or something in CPP, and the rest of the things are pretty similar. But the beauty of using a list in Python is I'll just use it on directly on my command line. So this is called interactive mode. So you can just interact basically with Python over here. So let us make a an empty list, and now we'll do a dot append. Let's say a number 100.
सुन तो
Uh, Hello.
कुछ आवाज आ रही है just straight wrong.
Yeah, Shahid, you could just mute if you don't have a question. It's fine. Yeah. So we did this command and we append. Append is basically pushback here. So we add. So let me show you something. So now I'll just append a string onto this a b a b a b, and now I'll print a. So in the same list, I have the number 100, and I have the string a b a b a b. So that is really good because you don't need multiple data types to hold multiple. So this is basically called an arbitrary data type. That it doesn't matter what data type you have, you can store anything in a Python list. And the transversal and everything is identical to a CPP thing. So I am here assuming that you guys have done some CPP. So a of 1 I entered the same thing as it would happen in CPP. So if you just want to test things out, you can do it right here in interactive mode. Uh, Ayush, what other concepts did you cover?
Um,
Okay, one thing we forgot was a function. So the way you make a function in CPP is def. And again, CPP works, sorry, in Python. So Python works with arbitrary data types. So you don't have to tell what data type that thing is. I'll just show you. So let the name of the function be my function, and A, B, B, C. And basically, I don't have to tell it what ABC are. So let's say I do return ABC. By the way brackets work in CPP, indentation works in Python. So don't mess up your indentation. Everything will get messed up. And now let's run this function. Uh, okay, we'll just copy this and go back. I don't want to input these again. Yeah. And now I'll run this function. Yeah. So this will basically run the function, and now I'll show you something interesting. So A is equal to, first I'll use integers everywhere. 10, 20, 30. Okay, I didn't print this. Nice. Yeah. 10, 20, 30. And I get the sum 60. So well and good. Now I'll do something else. A is equal to AK. Okay, just one sec. Yeah, so this int thing basically won't work right now, but what I'm trying to say is that if we had A, B, and C as three strings, so let's say AK, SH, AT. So the way this will work is that it will just concatenate these three strings together. So the same function we use for an integer, we use that same function for strings. So you can use the same function for basically anything as long as the logic does not get messed up the way it got messed up here. So right. Ayush, are we trying to cover anything else in Python?
No, I guess this should be.
Yeah.
Oh,
So anyway,
I
one thing, this
yeah,
small,
yeah.
small. If you want to do anything with ROS in Python, it's really easy. Just import ROS pack. That is it. Now this will work in ROS basically. So that is all you need to do. So obviously Python is easier. It is visually pleasing, but you don't realize a lot of things you're doing in Python, and you don't basically get to appreciate them. So we'll sound a little like your CS 1100 cross, but we'll say that try to give preference to CPP because Python you can do at any time. It is just English. And like if you are doing like high level stuff later on, you can use Python in that. But for now, we would recommend CPP. Yeah. Ayush, uh, do you have anything else?
I guess I think I forgot to show them how to make a function in C++. Should I show that or like?
Guys, does anyone not know how to make a function in C++? We're just asking because you guys did a course in CPP.
Yeah, it's fine. I can show it also if it's if
Uh,
you guys already know, then it's also fine.
okay, I guess they know. If even one person wants to, then we'll show. That's not a problem. Okay, someone wants us to show.
Okay, cool. Then sure.
Ayush, take over.
Yeah. My screen visible.
Yeah, it is.
So this is our basic skeleton of a function. So now if I want to make a function, first of all I need to know what type of value will I need from a function. So supposing if I want say an integer which is coming out from a function, or maybe if I don't want to return anything, like I should know that beforehand. Now supposing I want to make a function that returns the sum of two integers, for instance. So what I'll do, and since it is returning the sum of two integers, which will also be an integer, so I can give it the type as int func. Now I'll take two arguments in this. So int a, int b. Now I'll declare a local variable inside. Sum is equal to a plus b.
So local variable is basically something that is not working in your main.
Yes. So
That is actually a bit of a bad description, but essentially yes.
yeah.
Yeah, a better word for that will be like the sum variable can be only accessed by the func. It won't be visible to main or anywhere else.
Yeah. So local means only people inside func can access sum. People outside won't know sum as anything unless it's also declared outside.
Yeah. And then I'll just return sum. Basically it. So supposing I want to take two variables as input from the user. So I do cn x and y. Then I can just do sorry cout.
So take note of how long it was taking us to run a Python code and how long it is taking us to run a CPP code. So yeah, 4 and 6 it gives us some 10.
Yes.
So small piece of advice, people who have done CPP, continue with CPP and Python will seem very easy to you. People who have done Python, give CPP a shot because you won't know a lot of things that go on in CPP if you've just done Python.
Also, one more thing, like while the compiling is going on, you might feel that C++ is slower than Python, but in reality, supposing Python takes say like 800 milliseconds to complete a code, C++ will take some 40 milliseconds only, because Python is actually built on C. Uh, if you knew that before, so whatever code you're writing in Python, it is first getting converted into C and then it is running. So just some extra knowledge I'm giving. No need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now
Okay.
suppose, yeah, yeah, okay, what?
No, no, carry on, carry on.
Supposing you don't want to return anything from a function, you just want to say,
Do
uh,
something with that. Like
do
you
some,
want to convert A into A plus B. Go do that, Aayush. A is equal to A plus B.
oh yeah, okay.
So what this function will do is basically change A as A plus B. So
Uh,
then you make the function void. That means it doesn't have a return type. It just does something to the params.
yeah, we'll just take a simple printing function. So like, if I want to print, if I don't want to keep calling cout again and again, so what I'll do, I'll just do cout again. Uh, yes. So now I've taken x and y as input, I can just call. So again we'll take 4 and 6. Yeah, 4 and 6 is printed. So basically I'm not doing anything with the variables, or I'm not returning any value from the variables. I'm just doing simple printing tasks, or maybe assigning this value to something else, like that. Yeah. Yeah, this is it, like how to make a function. Of course there are more advanced things to this, but for now this should suffice. What we use for us. Yeah, any doubts? Anyone else?
Also, like we'll be starting with C. We'll be starting with Python because it is easier to explain the code in Python, and then maybe if time permits, then we'll show you the C++ version of it also in
Yeah,
the
but
next
like I
session
said,
or
like
whenever.
when you program on your own, it is preferable to do it in CPP because Python is not easy. It's not hard to understand. CPP is. Okay, so like as we promised last time, we'll be moving over to some more visual things now, things that you can see. So basically, we said that we'll show you a small robot and we'll do that. So this robot is basically, am I sharing my screen? Yes, I am. This robot is basically comes with you when you download ROS. So I think the last time you remember, I'm not opening my browser because that kills my PC somehow. So, if you remember the last time I showed you different ROS versions and all of them had a different turtle next to them. So this is basically what that is about. So this node is called a turtle sim. So what it is basically is that it is a very basic robot which you can control with your arrow keys or with a joystick or something, and it will just move around the screen and it will do things. So for that, the first command we need to do is roscoe. So okay, let's take a small prof approach. Does anyone remember what roscoe did? Come on, guys. Okay.
Yeah, Akshat, there are replies in the chat.
Okay, I see. I don't see the chat when I'm sharing the screen apparently.
Okay, okay. So I'll read it for you. It's calls master,
Yeah,
runs ROS master, and starts master and ROS out.
yeah, great. So we run a Roscoe. So basically, you in our gazebo session, we'll tell you what a launch file is, and if you don't have a launch file, you have to do a Roscoe. In if you have a launch file, then you don't have to do Roscoe. That happens itself. So now we'll do a ROS run. So does anyone remember what ROS run is? Did we go over what ROS run is? I think we did. So what ROS run will do is basically run a Python or CPP package with you, for you, and So basically anything that is not a launch file or a world file will be run by ROS run. So your ROS file or your raw CPP things, those will be run by ROS run. Someone in the lobby. Right. So now the name of our node is turtlesim. And now if I just press tab, I'll see what all is available here. So I can draw, there is something called draw square, there's something called mimic, there's something called turtlesim node, there's something called teleop turtle, turtle teleop key. So first I'll show you these two and then we'll find out what these two do, I'm not sure. But I'll tell you how to find out. So turtlesim node. So what this does is it basically initiates this node which has a turtle sim in it. So you can see there is a nice turtle over here that is moving around, not moving around, just sitting still. So let's say we want to control this turtle. So now what we do? So okay, before that, I'm sure you. I'm hoping you guys remember what topics were. So let's see what topics are active
Akshat,
in our ROS right now. Huh?
we
Yeah.
didn't go through nodes and topics last time. We stopped at packages.
I think. Yeah, I remember explaining like basic what it was. So we'll just do it again. So a topic is basically something that is contained inside a node. So no need to go over very deeply what it is, but I'll just show you what topics are active right now. So okay, so these are the three that we care about basically. So there is CMD that is basically the velocity. There's color sensor and there's pose. So actually there is a lot of information you can get about this from these three, and we'll show you that in the next session when we talk more deeply about topics and everything. But right now we'll give this a pass and we'll. So right now I'll do something very simple. I'll publish on a topic. So no need to worry about what that is, but just look at what happens. So I'll give it a linear velocity. I'm sure you can tell that it's a linear velocity by now, and it will go at a speed of 10 straight ahead. So basically, that is what's happening. So what happened here is that I chose a topic from here and I subscribed onto it. We'll tell you what that means tomorrow, and that made this happen. But this is very cumbersome doing this whole process for everything or writing a code to do this whole process. So for that we have something called a teleop key. So what that will do is that it will make my arrow keys sort of the controller. So turtles in. And so do you remember this thing? Okay, the turtle is telling us that he hits the wall, he or she. So this, you remember this thing. So now we'll run this. Just copy it here. And now I can control this turtle. I'm doing this with my arrow keys right now. Right. So one thing I'll do is that I'll show you guys what this thing is doing exactly, what my arrow key control is doing. At the stop. Okay, I did a. Okay, sorry, my bad. Yeah. Okay, never mind this. We'll show you this thing tomorrow. So yeah, this is basically what I'm controlling right now. What I had to do was actually use the pose over here. So I'll just show you this for the sake of it. Yeah, so it will tell you the position at every single time. So this is constantly updating the position of that turtle. And I'll just open this in a new tab. And then I'll. Okay, what is it called? Turtle Lily. Okay. Yeah. So look here and then look here. So as I change this, you can see that all these individual values are changing. So my linear velocity is changing, my angular velocity is changing, as I am constantly changing this turtle's position and velocity. So this is basically what we'll be doing on a much bigger scale with a drone very soon and a plane if time permits. So you'll be able to like get all these pieces of information. You'll be able to work with them, make algorithms with them, and yeah, all of that in due course of time. So Pranit, did I miss anything? I think I showed a little too much, more than what we
Yeah, I think
discussed.
we'll be covering this anyways when we
Yeah.
teach topics
So
and
all
all.
of this will be done in detail tomorrow. I showed you a little too much to sort of pique your interest, and
So like,
yeah,
are we ending today early or like,
yeah, I
or
think we
should we
can end today
continue?
early. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so guys, any questions, anything, we are open.
Akshat, there are questions in the chat.
Oh, damn, I don't want
You can stop presenting. Yeah.
to. Okay, so what is the dependency? Dependency as in like where will we use it? We won't use it at LSM. It is just to show you guys how topics work, how nodes work. It is not, it doesn't have any purpose.
Yeah, it is like a very basic example where you can demonstrate all topics, nodes, and the working of all those. So that's why it is just a mean of explaining you guys things. It will be a lot complicated in the case of a drone. So like it will be more complicated at that time. So we'll start with a simpler version of it.
Okay, turtle sim is not working in this one.
We'll get
Have
to
you
it.
done the ROS installation completely?
Okay.
Okay, we'll send you a link. That will basically tell you the commands you need to enter for the turtle sim. It should work. I mean,
Also, like we'll be covering this one more time tomorrow, where we like go deep into topics and what. So at that time, maybe we'll fix
yeah, we can
this.
figure out what problem. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, I don't think we have anything else then. Okay, so goodbye, guys. Have fun. We are getting over early. And see you day after tomorrow.